I know this moment feels a bit uncertain for you in the media, for our staff, for players. What it actually is a clean canvas. Now, that said, we're already busy putting our planned next steps into action. We're working with Sportsology to get into the weeds on the future of our sporting department. We're conducting a search for our next sporting director, and we're continuing our full review of the men's national team program as well. I, along with JT and the help of Sportsology, will lead the search for our next sporting director. And as I mentioned in our last press conference, we are also still undergoing a technical review, as we do after every World Cup and Olympics. So thanks to the rest of our sporting team and to JT, we also have a great plan in place to lead us through this transitional time and into our next chapter. So with that, I'll turn it back to Neil and we'll take some questions.
Thanks, Cindy. Really appreciate that. And we will get started on questions. We'll start with Jeff Carlisle, then we'll go to Stephen Goff, and then Jonathan Tannenwald. Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you, Neil. Cindy and JT, to what extent did the investigation into Greg Berhalter and the circumstances that led up to that impact this situation by which Ernie and Brian are both departing? And what's the timeline for hiring a new sporting director and GM for the U.S. men's national team?
Cindy, you want to take it? Would you like me to?
You can. I'll add in.
Yeah, no impact whatsoever. And from a timeline standpoint, so we've already kicked off with Sportsology. We're as Cindy mentioned, we're using this as an opportunity to review our sporting structure to ensure that we're set up for success for all the things we want to go accomplish over the coming years. We also understand that this is something that we want to bring to life quickly, and so we're doing some of these things concurrently so that we're best positioned to have the right leadership in place as we go into big tournaments on the men's side. And of course, we have real confidence in our women's national team leadership and Kate and Vlatko and team, and are super excited for what they're up to this summer and the Women's World Cup.
Great. We will move on to Stephen Goff.
Thanks, everyone. For either one of you, it's from the outside, I guess it's hard not to tie these two moves with the investigation into Greg, the performance at the World Cup, the general connection between leaders of the Federation and the national team. I wonder if you could address that connection and obviously the relationships all these guys have had going back, 20 to 30 years in U.S. soccer.
Yeah. So before the World Cup in Qatar, I was informed that Brian would be moving on after the World Cup, and we asked him to agree to extend his contract through the end of January to help us in this transition, because we knew that Greg's contract was up, and obviously we didn't know about the investigation at that point, but we knew that we were going to have this transitional moment early in the year. And then as to Ernie, Ernie is an accomplished and highly sought after leader. And there have been many roles that have come his way throughout his tenure at U.S. Soccer. And, Ernie informed us of this opportunity. And this was one that both JT and I, we just really understood why this was something that he couldn't turn down. It was an opportunity for him on a very personal level to be near his family and to return home. And we agreed to let him out of his contract. And though we're sad to see him go, we're focused on the opportunity ahead for U.S. Soccer. And this really does give us an opportunity for a fresh look. And I know what you're getting at, but we did not plan it this way. We do find we find ourselves in this position, and we're going to take the opportunity to really do a deep dive on our sporting side to make sure we're as effective and as efficient as possible, because we have grand vision of where we want to go on the sporting side, and we want to make sure we're best positioned to accomplish those goals.
Great. Before we move on to Jonathan Tannenwald, the next three will be Paul Tenorio, Doug McIntyre, and Henry Bushnell. Jonathan, go ahead.
Thanks, Neil. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Two, hopefully they're both short. You just said Cindy letting Ernie out of his contract. Does that confirm what Steve Goff had reported a while back, that his contract was extended through 2026, which was never formally announced by U.S. Soccer? And the second one is the release says, and listening to what you said, the release says, quote, once the sporting director is hired, that individual will oversee the process of hiring the new U.S. men's coach. Will there or won't there be a U.S. men's general manager? And if so, what is the hierarchy going to look like if the men's and the women's hierarchies, with Kate Murcraft being there, are not the same?
All right, lots of questions there. I'll start off, and then JT, if you want to chime in.
Sure. Yep.
All right. So I don't have it in front of me. What we did extend Ernie's contract. I don't remember the exact timeline and link to that, but I can circle back and certainly give that to you. So yeah, we did let him out of his contract to pursue this new job. The timing, we would like to have our new GM and our men's national team coach in place by the end of the summer. As for the GM role, we're going to be working together with Sportsology to evaluate our entire sporting department. And once we have more clarity on what that department should look like moving forward, we'll determine the leadership and support that is needed. We do still have a GM on the women's side, and we're very happy and think we have the best team in place for our women's national team as we head into the Women's World Cup. We do recognize that the teams sometimes have different needs, and so we're going to be evaluating that over the next period of time alongside with Sportsology to determine what is the best structure for our men's national team. Is it the same as the women's national team, or does it need to be slightly different?
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. We will move on to Paul Tenorio.
Thanks so much. Cindy, you mentioned that, when Ernie came to you guys with this opportunity, that it was clear that it was the right chance for him to, you let him go from the contract. How long have you known that this opportunity existed? How much did that impact the review of the men's program that Ernie was overseeing? And how has that impacted the timeline of the coaching search? And then second, I wonder if you could speak to kind of why you decided to go with Sportsology as the consulting firm to run through the sporting department. Thank you.
Okay, so I didn't write down your questions, so you might have to ask them again. But we went to Sportsology. We interviewed a few search firms as well as firms that do this type of work that Sportsology does. And we went forward with Sportsology because we thought they were the best group to help us navigate the situation that we're in now, where we want to do a full review of our sporting department and at the same time need to work towards hiring a sporting director and in parallel, moving the search forward on our men's national team. And we thought Sportsology was the best suited for that. And can you repeat your other two questions? I'll write them down this time.
I remember that we've known for a couple of weeks that this was a possibility. This all has firmed up over the last couple of days. And in parallel, we've been planning for the transition. And in terms of impact to timeline, I think Cindy spoke to that earlier around our plan to hire a sporting director who will choose our men's national team coach. And so obviously that impacts the timeline relative to where we were a few weeks ago. But one where, we're confident in the leadership of our team, we're confident in the leadership of our sporting department. And we think Ernie and team have built a great bench to be able to carry us forward in a very positive way in the interim while we're mapping out our long-term plan.
Yeah, and the other part of your question, did this impact the technical review? No. Ernie is staying on with us through mid-February. And so he will be helping us with that. And he's kept us up to date on where they are with that throughout this entire time.
Great. Thanks, Paul. We'll move to Doug McIntyre.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, guys, for doing this. This is for either of you, I guess. When we spoke last, I think it was January 4th, Ernie said that Greg Berhalter remained a candidate to coach the team. You know, is that still the case? Is that totally dependent on, you know, what the new sporting director thinks? I just wondered if you could clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take that. At this point, nothing has changed on that front. Greg remains a candidate.
Thank you.
Great. Before we get to Henry, we'll have Sam, then Charles Bohm, and then Alex Silverman. Go ahead, Henry.
Thanks, Neil. Question for both of you. What role are the two of you planning to play in the head coaching decision, if any? Like, do you plan to be hands-on at all? And, you know, especially obviously given the nature that there's an investigation going on around a sensitive subject, like, will either of you, could you potentially exercise veto power over whatever the sporting director decides? Like, what will the relationship be there, and what role will you two play in it?
Yeah, so JT and I will definitely be very involved in the hiring of our sporting director, and we'll be leading that search and that hire alongside Sportsology. And obviously we'll bring in other people as we need to. On the head coaching job, I will work directly with Sportsology on that and to continue to move that search forward. And then as we bring the sporting director on board, that sporting director will then join me in leading that search. And ultimately, the new sporting director will be tasked with hiring the men's national team coach.
Okay, but just to clarify, so you'll be working with them as well. Like, you'll be working kind of in conjunction with them. Got it.
Great. Thanks, Henry. We'll move on to Sam.
Thanks, Neil. Henry sort of just took my question, but I'll ask a bit of a follow-up there. Is it a sure thing that you guys are going to replace Brian and hire a GM on the men's side? I know you mentioned that you'll evaluate the structure and it might end up being different than what the women have set up currently. Is that something that's up for debate, or is that something that's set in stone?
Yeah, well, I'll answer that. I kind of answered it before. Alongside Sportsology, we're going to evaluate the entire sporting department, and that includes the GM role. So we'll evaluate the GM position along with all the other positions in the sporting department as part of this holistic review that we're doing. And as I said before, we're not dead set on having the exact same structure on the men's side as we do have on the women's side. And we're going to be evaluating that and seeing what changes we need to make. So more to come on that front.
All right, we'll move to Charles Bohm.
Thanks to both of you, or all three of you. You alluded to Ernie's work to lay a strong foundation and build a strong sporting staff. But with at least two of these leadership positions now being vacated and refilled, what really will be left behind for the next coach and GM? Will they be expected to continue the current style, philosophy, et cetera?
Yeah, what is left behind? Our entire sporting department. Yes, we had two very talented individuals that are moving on, but they have been great leaders and they have built up the staff under them, as JT mentioned before. And so I'm excited about the new opportunities that this presents. And I'm also looking forward to helping the new leaders in the organization step up and lead as we bring on a new sporting director, and then the men's head coach, and looking at whether we're going to place a GM on the men's side or have a different structure there. So I think we have a good bench. And moving forward, I'm excited about the opportunity that we're presented with.
We'll move on to Alex Silverman.
Hi, with the World Cup in Qatar taking place in winter, obviously you already had a shorter window between World Cups. Now you have what obviously looks like a delay in terms of the timing of naming a new coach. When do you worry that the uncertainty here starts to affect preparation for the next World Cup?
Yeah, so obviously this isn't the process that we chose to go down. But now that we are in the situation that we are, we've made some shifts inside of US Soccer, as you saw in the press release of adjusting in this transition time with the new reporting structure and Anthony Hudson as the interim head coach. So I think it's going to be pretty seamless. And as I said before, we're hopeful that we can fill these two positions by the end of the summer, so that the men's team has plenty of time in preparation for the World Cup and leading up to 26.
And I think a really important point to actually the prior question that relates to this one is the team and the bench and the infrastructure and the process that has been built out in our sporting department over the prior years. And this is, sporting director position was new for us, and the sporting department in this fashion was new for us. And so the infrastructure, the processes, the ways of working are very evident. And, I'm here with the team in Los Angeles right now. The environment carried forward from Qatar to today, and it will carry forward to our next games. And so, we've got a really impressive team that are carrying the positive momentum forward, and I think we'll all see that and experience that in terms of what goes on in future camps during this interim period.
So I think we have time for maybe one or two more, and we'll go next to Andrew Jones.
Thank you, Neil. Just my question, because Cindy had indicated that the head coach possibly would be decided before the summer. So in terms of the sporting director, that likely maybe could be decided in the springtime, or what timeline for do you all hopefully have with collaborating with Sportsology to be able to have the sporting director? Thank you all, and have a good day.
I'll jump on that one. For us, we would love to have the sporting director in place prior to the Women's World Cup. But we're not putting definitive timelines on this because we want to do it right, and we want to make sure we have the right person in place. It's not just a short-term fix. This is a long-term person that we want to put in place, and we have to make sure that they align with our visions and values as an organization. So we're going to move quickly, but we're not going to rush the process.
Okay. We'll do one last question down the line, and then we'll wrap things up.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, everybody, for your time. I think the question left is, what are the priorities? Because as of right now, if we're thinking about it, we have the investigation that I know is independent. You're looking for a sporting director, a GM, and then eventually a head coach for the men's national team. How is that priority? What do you prioritize over the next 90 days or so, especially given that the men, yes, they're competing in January camp right now, but they also will have Nations League in March, which will be their first competitive competition of the seasons of the year, so to speak. So where's your priority lie right now? And how do you keep that moving forward with so many things that are still left to be discussed or to be determined?
The one high level thing, and then I'd love your perspective on the detailed priorities. The team at US Soccer is, we have a sophisticated leadership team broadly, and we have a sophisticated leadership team of our sporting department. And so, I'm confident that we can move forward positively on all of these fronts. And as we mentioned, we have a great infrastructure to be able to carry forward from a sporting standpoint. And so all of these things are moving forward concurrently, and feel very confident in our ability to go be successful and accomplish the things we want to go accomplish. So there's no, I feel very good about that, Cindy.
No, I agree. I think we've shown in the past with different challenges and opportunities that we've faced that we're pretty good at multitasking. We have a very sophisticated staff, and we have a supportive board and membership. So I'm very confident in our ability to move forward on all the priorities that you mentioned and others.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, JT. Thanks for everyone getting on the call. We know it was a quick one for you to respond to. If there are any other questions that you have, please send them to me and I'll try to get those answered. Once again, appreciate the time and we'll talk to you guys all soon.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.